There comes a moment in some journeys when you realize that the map you've been following no longer matches the landscape that stands in front of you. Sometimes we reach that reality suddenly, and other times it takes years. For me, that happened somewhere between the woods, an ambulance, and a manuscript that I never intended to write. Welcome to the Honest Outdoors Podcast. As always, I'm Mike Martin. And before we go any further today, I think I owe you an explanation. Not because I owe anyone an explanation for starting a new podcast, but because understanding why this show exists is important to understand the path that we're going to travel together. Because this podcast did not start today when I hit record. In many ways, it started years ago, long before I ever picked up a microphone, long before the Project Mindfully Outdoors podcast, or even before this title came about. And definitely way before I understood exactly what it was that I was searching for. You know, for many years, I hosted the Project Mindfully Outdoors podcast. And over time, that evolved into a place in which we gathered to explore hiking, mindfulness, preparation in the wilderness, while remembering and practicing first aid within a beautiful outdoor setting. Looking back, I'm truly grateful for every episode, every moment that we spent together, all the conversations, the lessons, and yes, my friend, even the mistakes. Because those years, every aspect of that worked together to teach me something important. All those years taught me how to listen, how to ask real, meaningful questions. And eventually, they taught me something that was even more valuable than that. They taught me that I didn't have to have all the answers. The funny thing about the wilderness is that if you spend enough time in it, eventually it begins asking questions of its own. Questions that you didn't know you even cared about. The wilderness doesn't look for answers within a job title. Instead, the questions that it asks, it forces you to look at the plans that you're making. It forces you to really step back from your accomplishments. Because it makes you wonder things like, who are you truly deep inside when no one is watching? What are the things that you're chasing? What is that thing out there in the world that you are so afraid of? But perhaps the most difficult question of all, are you living honestly? You know, even though this whole new podcast marks a huge transition in the Project Mindfully Outdoors world, I didn't set out to write a book. I really didn't spend or intend to spend years studying the mirror of that book, Daniel Boone. I didn't set out to follow trails that would eventually lead me through Kentucky, Missouri, 1,000,001 old journals, and countless forgotten questions, which all caused me to have to examine parts of myself, parts that I wasn't sure I really wanted to even examine. But yet, life has this way of taking us to places that we did not intend to go. And somewhere along the way, I realized the story that I thought I was telling wasn't even the story at all. Because I thought I was studying history and mindfulness a connection to nature. But instead, what I was really exploring was how to live with loss. Times that I would pick up a biography or visit a site attributed to Daniel Boone, I thought that's what I was there to do. But instead, I was exploring resilience. And when I thought I was rewalking the frontier in a modern context, the reality was that I was walking a transition in myself because I was searching deep within. And eventually that journey created a book. It's not because I set out to write one. It's because the story refused to leave me alone. The title of that book is called The Honest Wilderness, Finding Daniel Boone and the Frontier Within. Throughout the season, I'm going to share with you a preview of different pieces of that journey. It's not as a promotion. Instead, I'm doing this because it creates questions that can help you in the exact way that the questions helped me. In my case, they led me to Boone. But the reality is, all the questions that we explore on this brand new podcast, they lead to a unique and individualistic place. But they all hold a common theme. Because we're going to dig into those questions about resilience, meaning, identity, and what it is that we do when that map we've been following no longer works. The truth is, my friend, that there's been seasons in my life where I felt lost. Not physically, something much deeper than that. The kind of lost that arrives when the life you built no longer fits. The kind of loss that appears when old answers no longer work. And the kind of loss that sits quietly beside you when no one else is around. I'm sure you can relate to that, my friend. I can only imagine that you've experienced not only those questions, but those feelings many times over. And maybe that's why you're listening now. Because the world that we live in, it's one that's filled with noise, notifications, grabbing at our attention, deadlines that we have to meet, and opinions that everybody has. There's a world full of news, algorithm, and a million other constant stimuli. And yet, the ironic part of the world that we live in today is the more that I talk with people, the more I realize that we feel more disconnected than ever. And I don't mean just from nature. I mean from community as well. And when those things play together, they end up creating this feeling of a loss of purpose, a loss from themselves. And that's where those conversations have resonated so deep within my heart that I felt it was time to take a new direction, to build a new map, because I've felt all of those feelings. And if we're honest, my friend, it's a feeling that really leaves us stuck. You know, I think about one of my earliest memories of the outdoors, and it involves this old, rickety, crafted out of wood rifle. And, you know, it makes me smile every time that I think about that old wooden rifle, because I carved it with my grandfather. The reality is, even back then, it wasn't anything fancy. I knew in my heart of hearts, even as a child, that it was just a piece of wood that we shaped by hand. But looking back at it now, and I think about the connection of crafting that wooden rifle, it's even more priceless and enduring within the memories that sit in my heart. Because I crafted that rifle with my grandfather. I carried that thing through the woods behind our home, and I remember distinctly imagining that I was crossing and seeking out unexplored rivers, frontier forts, that mountain that laid just over the distance. And I always had this sense of wonder about what laid upon the next ridge. Back then, the wilderness truly represented freedom because it was filled with themes of adventure, endless possibility, and those things made the world feel so large. And in turn, even as a child, I can distinctly remember how much simpler life felt. But then there's the ironic part, because you realize that it wasn't necessarily the way that life would always stay. I look back now and I realize that the time as a child that I spent playing in the woods was really honestly beginning to mold me all the way back then, way before I could understand. And it would take decades until I could connect with those questions, with that guidance, in a way to shape a philosophy to live my life. Because the outdoors has never been simply the outdoors. It's truly been a place about attention, wonder, presence, and curiosity. And really deep down, it's all about finding a place that you can practice learning how to simply notice. And I say notice because I fast forward my own journey and I think about the times as I grew older in life, in the way that life became more complicated. Gradually, it filled with responsibilities, but through the expansion of time I would spend at work and building and crafting the life I thought I was supposed to lead, the expectations that I would carry on my shoulders grew over and over. And like many people, I just allowed myself to be busy, to become consumed by that rolling wheel. And while there's nothing wrong with being busy, looking back now, I've really uncovered the fact that there's a danger that comes with being so occupied that you forget to really stop and ask yourself where you're going, or even why. And that's part of what this brand new podcast is all about. Of course, there's going to be hiking. And of course, we're going to look for inspiration from different historical events. But my friend, this isn't just a podcast about being prepared. And it's definitely not simply about philosophy. While all these themes are going to tie hand in hand, the real subject matter of this podcast is what it means to be human, what it means to lose your footing, what it means to have to begin again, and what it means to simply take that search for meaning, what it means to truly find beauty, not only within natural, but ordinary places. Because my friend, when we continue to move down the trail, it may seem unclear, but what lies on the other side is truly miraculous. And over this season, we're going to talk about the adventures of the wilderness and bring them into the context of our modern world. We're going to talk about Boone and a number of other cohorts But we're going to talk about traveling those silent paths, the ones that are in our heart, that make us address resilience, loss, meaning, community, fear, and most importantly, healing. Because these are the kind of stories that truly shape our lives. Beneath all those conversations, there's a deep, centralized question. How do we find our way forward? Forward through the uncertainty and the challenge. How do we really uncover lasting change? Or perhaps, maybe I'm even digging and foreshadowing the way to a deeper question. What if the goal that we're seeking isn't to find our way back at all? What if the goal is simply to become someone new? To become someone who's more honest with ourselves and more aware of every moment? What if it's about becoming someone who's willing to walk into uncertainty without pretending that we know exactly where the road leads? That is what the Honest Outdoors is all about. It's not a place that's about being an expert. There's no perfection required, because this is simply a campfire that's built for stories, questions, meaningful conversation, and the lessons that we gather along our trail. Now, before we wrap up this very first episode, I'd like to leave you with one simple thought. Because while researching Daniel Boone, I discovered something that surprised me. It's the fact that Boone wasn't remembered because he was known for knowing the way and knowing his destination. He was remembered because he kept moving when he didn't feel like he had the strength. There's a huge difference. And there's one thing that is absolutely certain about that, is the fact that the latter of that takes courage. Most of us spend our lives waiting for certainty before we make a move. Maybe what we really need to do instead is just look deep within to find the courage to take the step before we can feel or see that certainty. Even in times when the trail disappears, even when the future remains unclear, even when we aren't sure where this journey leads, sometimes that's enough. Thank you for joining me on the pilot episode of The Honest Outdoors. In the weeks ahead, we'll begin season 1 and continue exploring the wilderness, resilience, and the history that was forged across the frontier, one story at a time. And my friend, if today's conversation resonates with you, I'd invite you to swing over to Project Mindfully Outdoors and join our newsletter, because you can learn more about my upcoming book, The Honest Wilderness, Finding Daniel Boone and the Frontier Within, and so much more. The truth is that I would really love to carry on this journey together. Until next time, my friend, get out there in the wilderness. That is where the stillness and the adventure lie. See ya. Quick disclaimer before I let you go. The Honest Outdoors is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. Topics that are discussed may include outdoor recreation, preparedness, mindfulness, wilderness travel, first aid, and personal experiences. Nothing in this podcast should be considered medical, mental health, legal, or professional advice. Always seek qualified instruction and exercise appropriate judgment when making decisions involving your health, safety, or the outdoors.